Hello everyone, back at it again. Got a little finesse spinnerbait there. That's a Z-Man finesse double willows spinnerbait with a 3-inch Z-Man slim swims swim bait for a trailer. That swim bait for a trailer on a spinnerbait really does seem to work. It seems like the fish hone in on the bait fish profile and they don't hit the blades as much. They're just looking for a target to hit, and if you give them a target, they're more likely to hit it. So I'm fishing this little finesse spinnerbait for a few reasons. It's about 2 weeks or so after ice out. The water is very cold. What I really need is some warmer temperatures, and we don't have them yet. But I'm giving it a try anyway. There's nobody else out here. During the summer, this place would be hopping. But it's pretty cool. I got my fleece fingerless gloves on. Those things are great, by the way. You can fish down to about high 30s if there's no wind with those, and I've got great feel on that bait caster, and I can fish comfortably and feel everything. Yeah, so I'm fishing that spinnerbait for a few reasons. The first one is that this pond is very shallow. It's basically just a dammed up stream that flooded like a swamp marsh area. So it's very, very shallow in this pond. The good thing is that if it's warm enough, the water warms up fast here. But if we don't have the warm temperatures, I mean, it can work the other way too. If it's cold overnight, the water temperature here will drop faster than a bigger lake with deeper water. Anyway, I'm fishing the spinnerbait because we just don't have a lot of water here. It's very shallow. And the other reason is it's a bait I can work pretty quickly and cover a lot of water and just ask the question, is something there? Like almost computer programming or something like that, where you say, is something there? And then you get back a response, yes or no. So I'm using it as a search bait. Is something there or not? And I'm hoping I can dial in certain areas of the pond, maybe on the windy side, maybe on the northeast side. We've got a western wind, so it's blowing west to east. So the east side is going to be the windblown side. And that's good because that's usually where the water's warmest, all else being equal. And the third reason I'm fishing a spinnerbait is there are a lot of small pickerel in this pond, and the wire of the spinnerbait acts like a bite guard. I almost had one there. I think I started to set up on something and it came loose. So anyway, those are the reasons I'm starting out with a spinnerbait, and I'm gonna land into some fish pretty soon. I can't cast this little finesse spinnerbait very far. I think it's only 3/8 of an ounce. And it's not very aerodynamic, so it doesn't fly all that great. But with the wind, it's not bad. I can cast far enough, and got my first fish coming in. Could be the right species. Nope. That is the wrong species, though. That's a little rat pickerel. I swear these guys follow me around from pond to pond in the early spring. Just after ice out, I can't get rid of him. Maybe he's more like a medium pickerel. Yep, chain pickerel. If you're in a part of the country without chain pickerel, you're probably better off as a bass fisherman. They make things kind of difficult from time to time, especially fishing light line or lures with a lot of hooks. Man, they can be a challenge. All right, this is a few casts later. Still fishing the same general area. There he is. And I load up on something that's a little bit better. I had him on for a few cranks. I can't really horse him with the finesse wire on that Z-Man spinnerbait. And whatever it was, it didn't have a great hold onto the bait. And I lost that fish. Sometimes in the early spring, the fish don't eat baits really well. And if I could get away with it, I'd put a trailer hook on there. But there's just too many weeds in this pond, and I would just snag weeds all the time. So it is what it is. I'm going to have to just work my spinnerbait through the weeds and hopefully stick a few fish before it gets dark. Alright, I'm going to keep fishing. Hopefully the next one I set into is a big bass. It's mostly a steady retrieve, but every once in a while when I bump into some weeds, I give it a pop.
There's one.
And that's another fish. But it doesn't look like the right kind.
What do we got there? Oh,
it's another one of those little pickerel. And I keep him in the net just to make sure he doesn't cut off my spinnerbait mostly. But it's probably a little easier on the fish too. Try to minimize my handling of him. He's not too the worse for wear. And off he goes. It's kind of chilly in that little blue towel that I keep wiping my hands with. Get that pickerel slime off of me. That's a lifesaver to keep your hands dry. You know, as long as you can keep your hands dry in those half fleece gloves, you know, I can fish pretty comfortably. But if my hands got wet and cold and my gloves got wet and cold, that's probably going to cut my trip a little short. So just covering water with that spinnerbait. Same general area. And I'm answering the question, is something there?
There he is.
And there are fish here. What I think is happening is the pickerel are beating the bass to the spinnerbait though.
No.
So, I mean, the first part is just finding something, really anything, in early spring. And if you can do that, maybe there's some better fish mixed in with the smaller fish.
Yeah.
Just checking out my spinnerbait. Still looks okay. And the pickerel's free to go. So I'm going to keep working the spinnerbait for a little bit. And then I'm going to switch to some other lures. Like a chatterbait. Whatever else I think I can fish through the weeds effectively. Alright, I put that spinnerbait down. I picked up a Z-Man Project Z weedless chatterbait. You can see it's got a weed guard. But that chatterbait out of the box, I have to be honest, it's not the greatest. And I have to heavily modify that chatterbait before I even fish it. So I replaced the snap, I replaced the skirt, and the eye of the chatterbait off the jig head, the molded lead head, is open. That means the blade can fall off the bait at any time, especially if you have a fish on it. So what you need to do before you fish it is modify it. And I think I have to do a video on it because it's a really great bait that nobody fishes, because out of the package it's really unfishable. But the advantage of it is that it's like a 4x4 chatterbait. You can fish it through wood pretty well. You can fish it through weeds. It's like a swim jig with a chatterbait blade on the front of it. And so it'll come through almost everything after you modify it. And the bit about the open eye part, you can crush the wire down with pliers, but that's really just bending an open wire hook attachment. And that's not ideal. So what I do is I tie on 50, 65 pound braid with any double line knot you like. It could be a polymer, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You cut those tags tight, turn the tags inside towards the eye, towards the inner loop of the eye, or where it's supposed to be an eye, and then seal it off with super glue. And what that does is it closes the loop. So now the blade can't come off the jig. I'm not really sure how that bait made it through an R&D process. I don't know what kind of pro fisherman they showed that bait to before they launched it on the market. But it probably shouldn't have left the drawing board until they fixed some of those issues. But again, nobody fishes it because of its flaws. But they're manageable flaws. And if you modify it, I'll do a video on it. If you modify it, it's really a great bait that allows you to fish a chatterbait in places where fish don't see chatterbaits because you can't fish them through all the weeds or all the wood or whatever else is in there. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm going over the same areas where I found fish with a spinnerbait, and I'm hoping that a chatterbait presentation will get some bigger fish or bigger bass or bass in general to commit to the chatterbait where they weren't committing to the spinnerbait, or they were getting beat by the pickerel to it, or whatever the case may be. And the first fish is another pickerel. I swear these guys just follow me around from pond to pond. The trailer I've got on the chatterbait is Yamamoto Seiko. It's not the swimming Seiko, it's just the regular Seiko. I don't really like swim baits on the back of chatterbaits. I do like them on spinnerbaits, but I find a lot of times the chatterbait will be vibrating out of sequence with the kicking tail of a swim bait. And I don't like that. It's like they're fighting each other, and I don't like what it does with the vibration. A lot of what I'm doing is by feel. You know, I'm running into weeds. I feel that the blade stop when it hits the weeds, and I rip it out of the weeds. And so if anything like that messes up the feel of the bait to me, I don't like. I like to be able to feel that blade working properly and not fighting the tail kick of a swim bait on the back. So the Seiko has no action at all. The only action it has is from the chatterbait blade kicking, and that's what makes it work. And the Seiko, it's one of my probably top 5 trailers for chatterbaits. There's a bunch of good ones on the market now. The Hog Farmer Spunk Shad is probably number 1, but sometimes they like that Seiko better. Alright, I've switched baits again. This time I've got a 5-inch power bait Champ, the swimmer. Basically it's just a Berkeley swim bait on a weighted weedless hook. And it's a natural color, it's a perch color. I wasn't getting the response I wanted with the chatterbait. The fish were just a little bit off. I got a few hits on it, I caught that pickerel, but I wasn't getting the bass that I know are in here. I switched to the swim bait, and I got a bass. Now, it's not a big bass, but it's a bass. And it's pretty cold, and I will take it. There's a closer look at that bait. It's got a nice tail kick. I like that bait in spring, mostly. I've done really well on it, and I feel like, you know, once I go through the spinnerbait, once I go through the chatterbait, my next step is a swim bait, and that's sort of like I'm taking off the swim bait that would be on the back of a spinnerbait and losing the spinnerbait, so it's more subtle, and maybe that's what the fish wanted. To be honest, I really wasn't unlocking any kind of great pattern on this day. The water's cold, the fish are cold, and I'm just trying to scratch out a few fish and have a fun day out here. But it's a little bit early. This was shot in mid-March, and yeah, it's two weeks or so after ice out, and the fish are just cold. That's my main problem. So I fished around with that swim bait for a little bit more, but I couldn't raise any more bass. I did catch another pickerel that messed up the tail, and I put on like an orange perch color, and I was hoping that would trigger some more bites, something to get their attention. But they didn't really like that bright orange color. I thought they would. They wanted the natural perch color,
What's that?
at least in that bait. So I ended up going back to the chatterbait,
Wow.
seeing if I could get just anything else to bite something. And it's another one of those little pickerel. Oh my. Well, probably by the time this spring is over, I will have caught 100 of these things. And they're all about the same size, and they will not leave me alone. Yeah, so that last pickerel messed up my Zaco trailer. Those Zacos work great, but they're not very durable at all. And in case you're not familiar, pickerel are like mini pike. They have a lot of teeth, and they do a job on soft plastic baits and line and leaders. So I thought I'd put on this Hog Farmer spunk shad. It's the 4.5-inch spunk shad. It's a great bait. I've caught a lot of fish on that kind of trailer. I thought about using, I think it's called Flamethrower, really bright orange color. But I remembered that the fish didn't like the bright orange color of the perch swim bait I was using. So I went with a more natural bluegill color. And I've caught a lot of fish on this combo, this spunk shad trailer and chatterbait. And the size that works best for me is 4.5-inch. It's kind of all around. If you're around big fish and you have a lot of fish that are biting, you can go with a 5.5-inch bait. But for me, the bread and butter size is 4.5 inches. And I try to get it on as straight as possible. And then I pull it back, get that skirt material out of the way, and then I run a little bit of super glue on the bend of the hook, and especially on the barb of the keeper that's on there. And then slide it back up so it's nice and straight. You want that chatterbait to run straight through the water and not crooked or sideways or anything else. You want it to look as natural as a jig with a big blade on the front can look. But for whatever reason, they seem to like that Zaco a lot better on this day than the spunk shad. And it's funny because sometimes in early spring, those fish can be super fussy. And just was one of those things. But I had a good time fishing. And the sun's getting down below the treetops. And it's getting chilly out here. Not that it was exactly warm before, but you can definitely feel it when the sun gets below the trees. And I decided I'd had enough fun for today. So it wasn't ideal. I caught a lot more of those little rat pickerel than I wanted to. I was really after bass. And what I think I need is just another week and a half or so until the next warm front comes through. And then I'm going to try it all over again. Maybe hit a different pond too. But I know I've caught some nice fish here before. And I know it's just a matter of time. And I don't want to be late. You know, I don't want to miss it by a week, so I'd rather be a week early. And that's what happened here, I think. So few more warmer days, warmer overnight lows, and that would do this pond a world of good. It warms up really fast because of how shallow it is. All right. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I'll list all the gear in the video description just like I do on all my other videos. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!